Welcome to Resilience Unplugged, where we have candid conversations with leaders, innovators, and change makers who are shaping the cybersecurity landscape in Africa and beyond. I'm Tony Barker, and today I'm joined in the studio with someone who I have huge admiration and respect for, Anna Collard. Anna is the Senior Vice President, Content Creator, Strategist, and Evangelist for Know Before Africa. Hello, Anna.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Anna is a storyteller, an entrepreneur, a multiple award winner, and a person I hugely respect, as I said. So very, very happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
So Anna, you've had a very interesting career, and I just want to, for those that don't know the backstory, I'd just like to go back into how you've got into cybersecurity, and which ultimately led to you founding Popcorn in 2012.
Oh gosh, yeah. I have to go way back then. Actually, before I started studying, because I wanted to study art back in the day, and my dad was, no, there's no money in it, and then I said, then I want to be like an interpreter and study languages, and again, he's like, no, there's no money in it. So I ended up doing international economics, and part of that economics degree was like an internship in South Africa, by the way. That's how I ended up here. But I also worked while I was studying in Munich. I was waitressing like everybody else, but there was a Siemens student program that paid better than the waitressing job. So purely for the money, I went there, and I worked there 20 hours a week, which was actually great. I really got exposed to technology through that, and they offered me to write my thesis in information security from a business point of view. It wasn't called cyber back then. I mean, this was 2001, so a long time ago. And then with that thesis, I then was able to get a job at Internet Solutions. They were looking for a security engineer, and I said, look, I have no engineering background whatsoever, but here's my thesis. And they then put me in between engineering and product management and the business unit. So I was like an interface or an interpreter between all of these divisions. And then fast forward, I spent 10 years in the Dimension Data Group. I worked for them in Europe, and actually it was great. Like in your 20s, if you work for an integrator like that, you really get exposed to the whole world and a lot of different organizations. But I knew while I was on honeymoon, I sort of went back to my roots, which is art and drawing, and I drew this whole storyboard of these characters while on the beach. And like these characters called Money Laundering and Robbing Your Data, and like a fun little cartoon story about cybersecurity. And I showed this to Old Mutual at the time, where I was based on site as an architect. And I said, look, I want to do this story as an awareness training. And they loved it. And they said, Anna, you should totally do it. But you have to also create a learning management system. I don't even know what that is. But so it was like through them that I got guided into starting Popcorn training. Yeah, that's how it started.
Which I must say, I mean, there are very few people in the industry that haven't gone through Dimension Data. I think if you haven't worked there, you've either been a supplier to them or you've had some form of contact with them. So I think hats off to them for getting, for creating so much talent in the tech world.
Yeah.
And I know that you also obviously used to sketch at school, which is obviously where your art came from. I mean, it's incredible to think that you've incorporated what you originally wanted to study with what you fell into, and you put the two and two together. And I remember obviously working at my previous company, and there were a lot of cybersecurity solutions then that came out many years later. And they always said to me, don't you want to distribute these? I said, no. They said, why? I said, well, there's one big player and every customer's happy with them. So I think, as you said, you spoke to Old Mutual, you did what, and I think that's also to young aspiring entrepreneurs that go out into the market and see what is needed. And you did. You went to your customer that you're on site and said, what do you think? A lot of the time people think of these ideas, and actually half the time they're not needed, and the market doesn't require them. So, and then fast forward, you had Popcorn, and obviously you then sold to Know Before. I mean, it wasn't a long time. I mean, you were young, you started a business. How many years was it?
7 years.
It's not a long time. And how did that happen? How did that?
So there's also a story behind that. When in 2014, the Gartner Magic Quadrant, so those analysts, they came out with a security awareness quadrant. And Tony, that was the biggest sales job of my life. Like, I managed to get popcorn onto the Gartner Magic Quadrant.
Wow.
For, I think, 3 years in a row. And then in 2017, I think it was, the analyst who ran that Magic Quadrant, and now I'll tell you, as a vendor, they know everything about you. I mean, they know your underwear, you know, like everything. Yes. You have to share everything. So that analyst moved from Gartner to KnowBe4. And when the email came out, you know, and it was Perry Carpenter, I just wished him well, and, you know, everything was fine. And then he called me a couple of months later and he said, Anna, I really appreciate that you were so cool about it. Some of the other vendors wanted to sue him because obviously he had all that insight, now moving to a competitor. And he said, I want to continue working with you. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. But a little bit, you know, like I was a bit hesitant because obviously KnowBe4 was the biggest player even back then. And I was a small little South African company. So I thought if I give them my content, I may as well close shop. So I was preparing in the call to tell Perry, look, as much as I like you and working with you, I think we can't. And in that same call, he dropped the bomb and he said, well, what if we acquired you? And yeah, so I think the learning that I took out of that is it really pays to be nice, you know, and not to get upset. And I know in South Africa, we have that all the time, that people move from a customer relationship to a competitor, and you still have to be nice to each other, right? Like, you never know where they end up next year. So we're all humans, and it helps to not, destroy your relationships.
I think I can say one thing about you, and that's your kindness. And there are not many, I mustn't say it that way, not many successful women who are kind. There are many successful women that are kind, but it's quite rare. And and when I met you, and I mean, you were busy. I was new to the industry, and you made time for me, and that's one thing I'll never forget. And they always say, you'll never remember what someone, you may not remember what they said, but you'll always remember the way they made you feel. And you made me feel very welcome. I mean, you know that you knew the industry inside and out. And so I would most certainly, that's testament to it. And they always say, be careful of your relationships, because careful the way you treat people. On your way up, you may need them on your way down. It's a very true statement. So, I mean, obviously it wasn't, people only see the success. They never see the trials, the tribulations, the lessons, the hurt, the stress. Is there anything any advice you would give young people, or anything that you learned along the way that you could share? Maybe something you would have done differently. I know hindsight's a perfect science, and I know we always are where we're supposed to be, and our experiences all led us to where we are today. But sometimes they're learnings that are great to share.
And actually, so the time when we met, and by the way, it's very easy to like you, Tony. So you made me feel good too. So, but at that time when we met, I think, I don't know if you remember, but I went through quite a tough patch. So I had a business partner at the time, and we were best friends even. I mean, we were bridesmaids at each other's weddings and everything. And unfortunately, that relationship turned sour. And because I think out of a self-confidence issue at the time, and this is the only thing I can maybe take out as a learning to share with others, is that if you have an idea and you don't feel quite ready to do it yourself, make sure you don't just take a friend on board and give them 50% of your business, because this is what I did. And anyway, long story short, we went through quite an ugly business divorce. I was pregnant at the time. I couldn't sleep. I had, horrible dreams when I finally went to sleep, and it really impacted my overall health. And I felt worried that it impacts my baby's health. So the good thing that came out of that whole thing is, because I had to find ways to cope with the situation, and it was existential. I had to pay her out, and I didn't know where to take the money from, and all sorts of things. Anyway, I started this whole journey into meditation and kind of body-mind alignment, and that really opened up my whole mindfulness and sort of yoga journey in a much deeper way. I mean, I've always practiced yoga a little bit as like exercise before that too, but that really, I went to silent meditation retreats. I did all of the things just to gain some sleep and some, reduce some of the anxiety for the baby's sake, actually, mainly. So in retrospect, it was actually really good because it helped me to grow a lot. But as a learning, you don't necessarily need to bring a 50% partner on board unless you're totally equal in terms of what you bring to the table.
I think that's probably the most valuable advice. I've been down that road as well, and this last time I was absolutely sure that I was never ever going to have a partner again. Mm-hmm. And then Simon came along, and we both add such different things to the business, which is exactly it. I would say it's an equal 50-50. But that obviously got you into, and I think it's tools that you've got for life now. And I think you needed them. It's interesting because I had the same, not business experience, but with a pregnancy where I nearly lost my baby, and that's how I got into it. So 25 years ago, I was forced into it. And most people are at some point in their lives. And I think that the youth of today have got such a gift in that we know what it is. So you can teach your children. I'm teaching my children. And it's tools in a toolbox.
Yeah.
And you've got your studio Zens, and which I've had, the fortune of attending quite a few times. And it's about the breathing, the meditation. It's hard work. And I think that the generation at the moment, which you more than anyone are aware of, the whole digital world we're living in, has caused serious mental health issues, and including social media. And I think that the kids and the young people have got to learn those tools, because it isn't a tablet. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for medication. There absolutely is in certain instances, but I think you have to do the work.
Yeah.
And I think it's all those things that enable us, like for you as a leader, to lead consciously and mindfully. And there's a book actually called Conscious Capitalism about the Whole Foods, the founders of Whole Foods. And they've actually done a study on how conscious leaders and mindful leaders actually have more profitable businesses.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
that's very, I also, just you mentioning that, when I still worked for Dimension Data, I had a boss or a manager at the time, Grant van Niekerk. He was wonderful, and he strongly believed in conscious leadership as well. So he actually got me back then already on that train of thoughts, so it's interesting. And I believe in that too. Like if your leadership decisions come from a place of authenticity, and which if you truly mindful and you're in the moment and you connect to your true self, right? And it's not just profit driven or outcomes driven or dopamine future driven. There's much more magic in the decision making and in the product development and in the coherence that you create with your team and all of these things that seem like magic, but they're actually just, I think there's a vibration. I mean, this sounds a bit woo-woo, but I think if you truly connect to that, there's like something bigger that happens, and that helps you and guides you. And then even apart from the woo-woo, just scientifically, if you can get people aligned onto the same vision, and if that vision is somewhat purpose-driven, then you have these supercomputers at our brains that are coherently organizing themselves, and we work together towards this future. And I think it's called the reticular activation system, the REC system, where you will then have all these brains that will be focused. So they will meet the right people, they will see the right things, they will make the right decisions, that eventually you think you're moving mountains, but you're just having all these people aligned, right? And I strongly believe in that.
No, I'm the same. I always say that if you put a group of fantastic people together, magic happens. But I also think you and I had the discussion the other day at the Meadow event, and I said there's such incredible people in our industry, and I say that often. And a lot of people say, are there? Everyone's not incredible. And I said, actually, I think everyone is.
Yeah.
And you said, well, it's just because we don't attract the ones that maybe aren't incredible. You attract the right people. And I think the same goes for businesses. So you attract like-minded people who are on a certain vibration to you, and you all work towards a common goal, and you spend more time with your work family, I always call it my work family, than your real family.
Yeah, true.
And they've got to be people you enjoy and you love being with them and you enjoy what you do, and then it's not work. And I think if there were more leaders in the world who saw that, and it's not a power struggle. I mean, surround yourself with incredible people, and magic will happen always.
Exactly.
So, which then leads me to Meadow Academy. And obviously, I don't have to, I mean, I think the whole country knows that we've got the highest unemployment rate in the world, sitting at 40%. And then on the other side, it's polarities. We're in this industry that continually talks about a skill shortage, and not in South Africa, a global skill shortage. So we put those two together, and you're a volunteer, but you co-founded the Meadow Academy. Mm-hmm. And it's something I'm very passionate about, which is the youth and empowering them and getting them to believe in themselves. And you've been a huge advocate for that, and you've made massive changes. So how did that come about? I mean, I think on top of this, you're still a mom. But anyway, I'm doing all these things and running a business and everything else. So whenever people say, I don't have time, you always have time. So for the important things. But just the background on how that came about.
Yeah, exactly what you said. I saw these two elements of the unemployment. And by the way, amongst the youth, it's even higher at 60% or something between the ages of 15 to 25. It's horrible. And then, like you said, we have this, at least that narrative of the skill shortage. So a few years ago, I thought, let's go to one of the universities, and I had quite a few chats with one of our local universities about creating this program targeted at students that can't afford the traditional, studying computer science or something. And we didn't get very far. I think it's just the universities are a bit trapped in their own bureaucracy, because if you create a curriculum, it takes 2 years before it's implemented, and by that time things would have changed in our industry, right? So I came across Dell from the Meadow Foundation, and he showed me some of the great work that the foundation has been doing, which is providing digital literacy skills to underprivileged schools. And he showed me one of the schools, and I met the kids, and then I was really impressed by him and his team. And then he said, when I was speaking about this idea of the academy, he said, Anna, I'm not an academic, but I'm a social entrepreneur. If we find the money, we'll build the academy. And that's how it happened. Like, we were, I guess, lucky enough to, at the time, we have a great relationship with the UK FCDO office. And I met Vicky White. She was the secretary for SABA at the British High Commission. We got on really well. We had coffee. We spoke about the idea, and she's like, "Yeah, let's put a proposal together," and we did, and that's how we got the funding. And obviously, also thanks to KnowBe4, we were small. They donated as well, but the UK government really is the main sponsor behind the initiative.
But I was at that event the other day, and I mean, it's just every time I go, I get so inspired. I mean, these kids are young, and Dale builds their confidence, you build their confidence, you mentor them, you coach them, and I think it's just so incredible. I mean, they come from, some of them really difficult backgrounds, and to see some of them over the years grow in confidence and stature and stand up there and own that event. I mean, they were the presenters.
Yes.
And it's just so inspiring. It's so encouraging. And they all, I mean, like you and Dale have taught them, network. They walk around the room, they chat you, I get LinkedIn requests. I mean, they're fantastic. And I think I think what you've taught them is don't be shy to reach out and ask to meet with people. Yeah.
Although I have to say here that the credit really goes to Maureen and her team. Like, I'm involved more on the sideline, I'm not there daily. But Maureen, who's the program director, she has a heart of gold. And her team is, so first of all, she has like this knack of identifying the right candidates, because, I think you were, maybe you were still there when we did this little exercise about what's the most important criteria you're looking for in a candidate. And it's it's not actually the years of experience or the certificates or the qualifications, it's attitude. And Maureen is looking for attitude from, the very beginning when they recruit, and then they nurture this. And like you said, some of those students come from very humble backgrounds, right? And then you have to hold them, and particularly the girls, you have to build up their confidence and even the vision that they can see themselves in these positions and having success and all of that. And that's where Maureen and her team, as well as the David Legacy Foundation, they are our sort of partner from a mentoring and self-development point of view. They provide mentors. So it's really, and this was an important element from the beginning that we said, this is not just a technical cyber training course. This is like a holistic readiness journey that these kids need to go through. Yeah.
And I think that's and we discussed it at the day about everyone would think it's degree, certification, years of experience. It's not. I'm exactly the same. I look at it and I want a good attitude and I want a willingness to learn. Yes. If you've got those two, I can do anything with you.
Exactly.
It's, but then I think, and as we also discussed, is that mentorship and not dropping them into an environment of where it's sink or swim. And I think in our time, a lot of that happened to us. Yeah. It was sink or swim. There was no one had time. They just said, okay, this is what you have to do. And you started and you did it. And I think today, if companies can do that proper coaching and mentoring, I think the success rate of these students going into these organizations is going to be a lot higher.
Yeah. Although, again, it has to do with attitude again, that when you're in that sink or swim situation, that you will reach out. We were both in this, right? And I have to say that and I was not South African. I struggled with the language in the beginning and the culture and everything. But when I went up to somebody, and it mostly male, I have to say, it was a highly male-dominated engineering space at Internet Solutions. When I had a question, they always helped me. They were always willing to stop for a second, explain things, help. And if you ask, you'll get, right? So this is the sort of, I think that, yes, it's important that the companies or the organizations give the students opportunities and, excuse me, and provide some hand-holding to a certain extent, but it also comes with the preparation that you build up that confidence and attitude to ask the right question, to I remember when I was I was 19 or something, my first internship, I did it at the Deutsche Telekom, and the manager I had there at the time, now this is like 99 or 2000, he says, no, you need to prepare or present what you're wanting to do. And I wrote this nice document, or I thought it was a nice document. I go into his office and he takes it and he throws it on the floor and he says, I don't have time to read this, like create a presentation, a PowerPoint. I didn't even know what PowerPoint was. But then I go back home and I taught myself what is PowerPoint and redo it. So even though he was rough and it wasn't a nice experience, it's sometimes you have to like get over that and just, that's how we learn as well. And this comes with that confidence and the attitude as well.
It does. But I also think that when we were younger, we might have been a little bit more robust, and maybe it's a personality thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's them reaching out for help, which I don't think, I know I didn't. I just thought I have to do this on my own and I'm all by myself and this is it. And when I was in my younger years, my older years, then I reached out and I said, help me. And I met for coffee. And I said to a young guy that was starting his business, I said, speak to as many people as you can. Reach out. Everyone's got a lesson. Everyone can help. Everyone's got an insight or has had experience in something that you are eventually going to encounter. So, reach out. And I think that's probably the message to the young people.
Yeah.
And I also think that, there are some really, I've had some really tough bosses as well. But I've probably learned the most from them than I have from anyone else. I worked for probably the most powerful woman ever. And I said to her one day, we made our number every year. And I said, are you ever going to congratulate me? I was the sales director at the time. And she said, that's pathetic. What do you want, a gold star? I was like, I was like, okay. But but also, she was an incredible, at the same time, she taught me so much. And she was an incredible leader. Yeah. But she led in her own style, in her own way. But I learned so much from her. And I actually met with her about a month ago. And I worked for 10 years. And I said, I think I need to tell you. I think it's same as you get older. when you were a teenager, you thought your parents knew nothing. And probably where my kids are young adults. But I think only once they have children and they experience real life, do they think, wow, like my parents are quite amazing. And I most certainly had that revelation with my mom. So I had that revelation with this ex-boss of mine. And I just had lunch with her, and I think it's so important because it's so wonderful to hear it from someone. We haven't worked together for 20 years, but I was very young when I worked for her, and I learned a lot.
Yeah.
But if I could go back, I probably would have asked for help more, and also know that in the tough moments is when you learn the biggest lessons.
Yeah.
You know, it's never through happiness and joy that you learn the most. You learn the most through the tough times.
And in fact, like this is something I try to explain to my kids as well, is that that feeling of, you know, you're going down and up and down and up, and that's part of learning. So if you feel down in the, you know, like, oh my God, this is so terrible, whatever it is, if it's a new skill that you're trying to teach yourself or a new project, there will be times that it's really difficult and it doesn't feel like fun, but that's part of the journey. And that means you're creating new connections in your brain, and it has to be hard, you know, and actually you feel so much better at the end of it because you went through the challenges, right? In fact, there was a Gretchen Rubin, she wrote that happiness project, or maybe I misquote her, it doesn't matter, but somebody very smart wrote, they did this research project about what happiness means, and the essential that came out of that project was that people who are really happy go through something challenging every day. You know, so they push themselves to do something that's quite hard every day. And I quite like that, you know.
I think that's how you grow and that's how you learn. And if we go back to caveman days, they said we experience extremities, extreme cold, extreme heat. Yeah. And now everything's moderated. We've got aircon, we've got heating, we've got, you know, we've got food available. We can, you know, if we are, you know, if we've got the means, you know. And that's why the human race is becoming a little bit complacent. The ones that are, I'm talking about people who obviously can afford basic needs. But it was also an interesting article just around how we're not experiencing the lows.
Yeah.
Necessarily on struggles, but then you've got the emotional lows and highs. And I also said to my children, it's part of life. You have a down day, you have an up day, you have a challenging day, you have an easy day.
Exactly.
You know, I think pre-COVID times, we all expected the ocean to be calm. And then now we're grateful when it's calm.
Yeah.
Well, when there's nothing happening and the kids are happy and work is smooth, now we appreciate it. Before it was an expectation that that's the way real life is, but it actually isn't.
And because of that, I also have a bit of an issue with that. You know, like the whole AI narrative about, oh yeah, in future we'll have all these robots that do all the work for us and everything will be outsourced and we'll just all get that universal salary and we don't have to work. And I'm like, well, you know what? Yes, maybe people like us will find something that we can, challenge ourselves and we don't need to get the financial reward for it. But how many people are reliant not just on their work for the financial survival, but also because it gives them purpose, it gives them something to do. Now imagine if you make all the bus drivers resign and I'll tell them now sit on the beach the whole day, or nurses or people that have real meaning in their work, they still need the meaning. We as humans, we're not built to just hang around. You know, that will end up in mental health issues. So it's really important that we think about that from a policy making and you know, the technology space as well, is that we can't just expect people to be happy with, even though it sounds like amazing, oh, I win the lottery, I don't have to work anymore. Well, then you have to find something that you can apply your mind with very quickly, because you're not going to be happy for long sitting on the beach doing nothing.
No, like you say, I mean, we built to be productive.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at. I mean, I think that the youth of today, one area that I think they have a lot more, that they have it probably, they've got a better insight than we had at the time when we were young, was that the first question they asked me is, how much leave do I get? I would have been petrified to have asked about leave. I never would have. I mean, I never said how much leave, you know. But they want a good work-life balance. And I think that our parents' generation were very much about their work defined them, especially our fathers. And then they work their entire lives, they retire, and then how often do you hear that a few months later they pass away?
Yeah.
And you think you've worked your whole life, and now you're dead.
Yeah.
So, you can find a balance between the two. I think there's nothing wrong with being hardworking, but I think it's so important to find that balance. And going back to the AI subject, I mean, there was an article that said that if with the use of AI today, that the youth are not thinking, because everything is coming out of ChatGPT or Perplexity, whichever platform it is, for basic things.
Yeah.
And my daughter said to me the other day, she said, Mom, you actually have to, they have to force themselves. Okay, I've got to write an email. It's so easy to say, okay, I need to write an email. Blah, blah, blah. No, because you're going to get dementia at the age of 40 because you're not using, like you say, you're not creating those new neural pathways, and you're not stretching yourself, and you're not challenging, you're not learning.
Yeah.
You're simply asking something. When at school we did maths and the teacher said, you need to know your calculations off the top of your head because you don't have a calculator everywhere you go. Well, guess what? Our mobile phone.
Yeah.
How often, I was relatively good at maths, and now, I look at a bill and I think, I've got to calculate this. We're just not used to, that part of our brains got lazy. So I think that everyone's got to be very aware of.
Yeah, and by all means, use the technology, but do it mindfully, and then you can actually engage with it to help you flex that muscle. Like in the email example, you could write the draft or the document draft, and then you actually we call it like you gaslight your AI chatbot to say, hey, now you're a 160 IQ creative writer, give me really ruthless, honest feedback on what I should do to improve this, and then you use it as a bouncing wall, and then it can be actually useful, but to just outsource your thinking, exactly what will happen is, and MIT had that study, right, where they compared 3 groups of students where one used ChatGPT for everything versus I think the control group used nothing, and then the middle group was allowed to use Google, and they showed that apart from, and I don't think it's a big surprise, like the ChatGPT users couldn't even remember what they produced, and when they did those brain scans, it really showed a reduction in the actual, I don't know, like whatever area they looked at, but it's really important to, like any other muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. So exactly like you said, you don't want to have Alzheimer's at the age of 40.
It's the same as our muscles in our body. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You exercise, you gym.
Exactly.
You've got to, or else they do just disappear.
Yeah.
And then just on mindful leadership. Obviously you've led engineering people, creative people. Your business was a marriage of the two. What do you think when people think about you as a leader? What do you think stands out for them? And you must be honest here, and just be, don't have to be so humble all the time. And I didn't want me to talk about her awards earlier, but so just what do you think people?
It's actually so funny because the one scene that comes into mind, and it's again a great learning that I took away, is as a leader, your emotional state is contagious. So in fact, all our emotional states are contagious, but as a leader, because we're all tribal, other people will be most tuned into your state, and then they will adapt that state. So if you walk into the office in the morning and you're in a bad state, everybody will pick up on that. So it's so important that you self-regulate and have that awareness. And I remember not being self-regulated at all, and I got so annoyed with one of the green banks, which was the bank I used when I was still at Popcorn. And it, by the way, took a year to allow the Americans access to this bank account, and only because I escalated to my security contact eventually in Joburg. Anyway, but I was so frustrated with this bank all the time. And I was sitting at my desk and I was like swearing and being so annoyed, and the people next to me were all, I could see they picked up on that, and that's not cool, right? So and I know we all have it, you get that rage or whatever, but as a leader you have to be much more careful about that and find ways to self-regulate. And when you asked me, this is like the sort of thing that popped into my mind, which is not a great example. But the other thing that I could say is I think I'm good with small teams, and I always, and this goes back to the attracting the right people. I think I was very lucky to attract amazing people initially. I mean, I didn't have to manage anybody. We were all aligned. Like the things were done on a napkin, or with Sasha and Joburg, we always telepathically knew what to do. So that magic was there in the small team. As soon as you grow into a bigger team, and particularly after the acquisition, we had to really grow the sales team, and it was much more process driven. I struggled a bit with that. So I think I'm better in small sort of startup, highly creative and free flowing environments. I don't enjoy the more corporate, process driven, and now you have to put everything that you do in Salesforce and whatever. That I know it's necessary, and it's part of the power of KnowBe4 and how they scaled like they did. I mean, they were in a hyper growth. But yeah, I prefer the more smaller creative environments.
Well, I think that's just you being self-aware and acknowledging that it's not your skill. I think not me. I think there are very few people who are entrepreneurs who enjoy following process and work in large organizations.
I don't.
And we need all types. I mean, we need all types in the world.
Yes.
So I think that. As I said earlier, you're very respected, and I think that you've touched a lot of people's lives as much as you probably don't know how many, and I think that says a lot about you, and I think that the change you've made in South Africa in the industry with regards to getting involved in multiple initiatives. It's not just Meetup. You get involved and you're available to meet people and mentor and assist and help. I think it's. You've most certainly taught me something in that when I'm very busy, I get so laser focused and I often don't reply to mails or don't reply to phone calls. And now that I'm in a startup phase and I'm phoning people and they don't get back to me, I needed my son to remind me and say, Mom, you too used to do this. You were busy. But now I know that actually just make time. There's always time to be made and pay it forward, because a lot of people have obviously been incredible to me. So, I mean, from my side, thank you for all the support you've given me, and thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Tony.
Just really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And and then I think next year I'll definitely find time in your busy diary, so we can. There's lots of other topics I want to cover with you. But
awesome.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed that conversation and you'd like to listen to more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Resilience Unplugged.